This is the early morning of the 19th of November. Don't know if you get a chance to look at the comments on YouTube on Gabor Zolna. Most of them are very positive, but as expected, there's always some posted, I guess, by trolls that enjoy attacking me. One of the most common comments they make is, I don't do anything other than repost other people's videos. Well, see, they have no idea as to what I do. First of all, the videos that I post of other people's videos are videos that I think most people need to see, but many probably won't even find them because they don't do the kind of research I do, looking for articles and videos that I think might be of interest to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't post them. And there's an awful lot of work done behind the scenes if you listen to the comments that I make when I make these videos. And again, I usually tell people, just go to the link. Don't listen to what I have to say, unless you want to hear what I have to say. Came across this clip put up by BoobTube. I'm going to attach 3 links. One will be on this article, Black Box Decoded. Scientists finally resolved the mystery of Air India 171 crash. The clip plays for 11 minutes. And I want you to listen to what's said in the video. Then I want you to take a look at the other 2 links that I also attached, which I'll talk about after I play this video. So sit back and have a listen to what's said in this 11-minute clip.
The wreckage of Air India Flight 171 lay wrapped in questions, soaked in grief, and shielded by silence. It wasn't just a crash. It was a technological riddle that refused to give answers. A nightmare frozen in time, with over 200 souls vanishing into flames just seconds after takeoff. The world demanded to know, what happened inside that cockpit? What could bring down a state-of-the-art Boeing 787 Dreamliner in mere seconds, with no warning, no storm, no mechanical distress? Now, after countless theories, sleepless investigations, and hushed whispers across aviation forums, the black box has finally spoken. And what it revealed didn't just unsettle investigators. It shattered Boeing's reputation and exposed a flaw so absurd, so microscopic, that it defies logic. What you're about to hear is not just the story of a crash. It's a revelation that will haunt every engineer, every pilot.
Watch what peanut butter
ad just popped up. I'll get rid of it.
And every passenger who dares to trust the sky again. Because when the truth surfaced, it didn't point to sabotage or terrorism. It pointed to the captain's seat. The morning after the crash, while investigators combed through a landscape of scorched debris and twisted fuselage, a bright orange cylinder was spotted on the rooftop of a hospital dormitory near the site. It was the black box. More precisely, the flight data recorder, FDR, still intact, still pulsing with the final seconds of the doomed aircraft. With urgency bordering on desperation, it was rushed to India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, where a multinational team, including Boeing and GE experts, began decoding its secrets. What they found defied expectations. The Dreamliner had taken off in optimal conditions. Engines were stable, speed, climb rate, and instruments all normal, until second 15. That's when the unthinkable happened. The captain's seat slid backward, not slowly, not gently, but violently, by nearly 30 centimeters in less than a second. A movement so sudden it caused the pilot, by pure reflex, to grab onto the thrust levers. But those levers were already at full power, and his involuntary grip yanked them straight to idle. Both engines shut down, and just like that, the aircraft became a flying coffin, 65 meters above the ground. At first, the investigators could hardly believe it. A seat? A sliding seat could cause a high-tech aircraft to nosedive into the earth? They examined the debris. The seat's locking pin, a component worth barely $20, had broken. What made this revelation even more chilling was the fact that the same pin had been repaired just 11 days earlier. Yet, no post-repair testing had been done. No stress tests, no safety verification, nothing. The entire safety of the cockpit relied on trust in a pin. In aviation, that's unheard of. And yet, here it was, the trigger that turned precision engineering into carnage. The captain's reflex to stabilize himself sealed the fate of 200 lives in under half a second. The Boeing 787's supposed backup systems? They never activated. The Dreamliner, built to fly on one engine, couldn't even stay airborne on two when those engines were silenced by human reflex and faulty hardware. And that's when the world realized this wasn't a tragic coincidence. It was a design flaw. But the mystery deepened. Was this just a 1 in a million fluke? Or had Boeing been warned? Internal documents began to surface. Reports from engineers inside Boeing's cockpit design division, expressing concern about the very locking system used in the pilot seats. Vibrational tests had shown slippage. Senior staff had signed off on warnings that were never escalated. In fact, a critical report highlighted the exact scenario: a worn locking pin, a sudden backward slide, and a captain reacting instinctively. But Boeing's upper management never saw it, or worse, ignored it. The Dreamliner had no mechanical lock to prevent both engines from being reduced simultaneously by human reflex, and that meant the system allowed a fatal input, not because it failed, but because it obeyed. The plane did exactly what the human told it to do, and that's exactly why it crashed. This wasn't just an engineering oversight. It was a systemic failure, one that placed cost-cutting, production speed, and bureaucracy over human life. The crash of AI-171 wasn't an isolated incident. Investigators began drawing connections with other tragedies: Lion Air Flight 610, Ethiopian Airlines 302, Air France 447, all disasters triggered by seemingly minor technical quirks, overlooked fail-safes, or poor system design. In each case, Boeing or Airbus took months, sometimes years, to admit fault. And just like with the 737 MAX, Boeing's response to the AI-171 crash was silence. No acknowledgement of a faulty pin, no promise to review seat safety, no accountability. The company that builds aircraft worth over $150 million couldn't explain how a $10,000 seat part, or the lack of a mechanical override, led to a catastrophe. And now, families of victims, lawyers, engineers, and aviation watchdogs are all asking the same chilling question. If Boeing knew and didn't act, is this still a tragedy or a crime? Shortly after the black box was decoded, an international team of flight safety analysts recreated the scenario using Boeing's official 787 simulator in Washington. The goal was simple: test whether the replicated conditions could truly lead to an unrecoverable crash. But what happened in the simulation room left even seasoned pilots rattled. The moment the simulated captain's seat was jolted backward, every pilot instinctively grabbed onto the nearest support, and that meant their hand landed on the throttle. Within 1.2 seconds, both engines dropped to idle. In 2.7 seconds, the plane lost critical lift, and by 4.5 seconds, the Dreamliner hit virtual terrain. No pilot, no matter how experienced, could correct it in time. It wasn't human error, it was human reaction. The engineers went pale. The instructors were speechless. The data didn't lie. The aircraft systems had no countermeasure. The scenario wasn't hypothetical anymore.
Google Fiber has arrived in Mesa.
All right, so here's the problem, folks. I said I've attached 2 other links. One other link that I did a search on is that the flying pilot would have both hands on the yoke. The other pilot might have his hands guarding the throttles. In other words, pushing the throttles forward. So, if the captain had his hands on the throttles, pushing the throttles forward to make sure that they don't move, and his seat slid back, he could pull the throttles. But the throttles would go to idle. That isn't what the data recorder showed. The data recorder showed that both engines were shut off within a split seconds of each other. That's where the scenario goes right off the track. It doesn't make any sense. The other thing I did a search on, which I also attached the link, if the engines on a 787 Dreamliner are pulled to idle, would the rat deploy? The answer is no. The rat only gets deployed when the engines are either turned off, the aircraft loses electrical power, or the aircraft loses hydraulic power. By bringing the throttles to idle, and all you got to do is push them forward, and the engines will spool right up again. That isn't what happened. One engine tried to do a restart, the other failed to achieve that. Now, see, this is one of the advantages that I have making the countless videos that I make. There isn't a whole lot that gets by me, and fortunately I can retain most of what I've been exposed to, which is how I can say the things that I've said in this particular video. Now, I'm not saying Boeing isn't at fault. I'm not saying that the seat didn't roll back. What I'm saying is that even if it rolled back, the engines would not have shut off. They would have gone to idle. And by pushing the throttles forward again, both engines would have spooled up. They were shut off electronically, which is what I've said from day one. Let's go back.
Tired of
It was repeatable. And yet, Boeing had never publicly tested for this exact possibility. While the media waited for Boeing's press conference, something unexpected happened. A confidential memo surfaced from inside the company, dated just 6 months before the AI-171 crash. It outlined concerns raised by 2 senior flight engineers about throttle linkage vulnerabilities in low-altitude rollout phases. A cryptic but unmistakable reference to the very behavior seen in the crash. The engineers recommended a system-wide audit of cockpit hardware, particularly seat mechanisms and manual override limits. But the memo was buried. Worse still, an internal directive suggested avoiding public acknowledgement of any design flaws that might require retrofitting older Dreamliners already in service. Why? Because grounding the fleet would cost billions. One insider, anonymously interviewed, said, "We were told, if it hasn't happened, it doesn't exist. If it does happen, pray it's pilot error." AI-171 wasn't an accident waiting to happen. It was an accident scheduled by denial. As the final report neared release, governments began to pay attention. India, already frustrated by Boeing's lack of cooperation, submitted a formal complaint to the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, demanding disclosure of all prior seat-related incidents. France and Singapore followed. Then came the bombshell. 2 Dreamliners in European service had reported seat anomalies in the past 18 months. One pilot described a violent rearward jolt during takeoff, which was dismissed at the time as mechanical fatigue. Now those reports were being re-examined in a different light. Insurance companies, already weary from the 737 MAX crisis, began investigating whether Boeing withheld key safety data. Airlines questioned their maintenance protocols, and families of victims launched a class action lawsuit not just against the company, but against specific individuals in its engineering chain of command. The crash was no longer a tragedy confined to a flight number. It had become a global reckoning. For the families of those aboard Air India 171, the discovery of what really happened wasn't closure. It was salt in the wound.
Here's another question I want you to sort of think about. Air India Flight 117. That was a Dreamliner 787-8 on final approach to landing. When guess what? The rat deployed. Did that captain's seat slide back as well as they were landing? Come on. Absolute bullshit. They're grasping for straws, folks. There's a fault in the design of this aircraft, and it's in the software. I'm convinced of that. And I'm convinced that when they did the upgrade for the auto throttles on landing, that's where the bug is. They also said they're going to fix the radios. The radios are switching from UHF to VHF. Qantas, which is the largest user of those airplanes, said the radios are still switching after they uploaded the fix. So what does that tell you? Let's go back.
Because the lives they lost, doctors, students, artists, mothers, children, weren't taken by war, terrorism, or weather. They were erased by a system that allowed human reflex to collide with engineering blindness. One mother, holding a photo of her son who died in seat 27A, said, "He trusted the machine. We all did." At a memorial near the airport, a new plaque has been installed. It doesn't mention the pilot. It doesn't mention the weather. It says, "In memory of those lost to silence and to the flaw that was warned, but never heard." And that's the real tragedy. Because this wasn't just a malfunction of metal. It was a malfunction of trust. In the end, what brought down Air India 171 wasn't a thunderstorm, a terrorist act, or a failing engine. It was something far more insidious. A quiet flaw that everyone saw but no one acted upon. A broken pin, a missed test, a warning lost in a folder, and a system designed to listen only when it's too late. The black box didn't just reveal data, it told a human story, one of reflex, of instinct, of engineers shouting into the void of bureaucracy. And now, that silence has a voice. The question is, will we listen this time? Because this wasn't the first time a plane went down due to a flaw hidden in plain sight. And unless accountability takes precedence over image, over cost, over pride, it won't be the last. Aviation was built on the bones of lessons learned in tragedy. But when we fail to learn, when we choose not to, we aren't flying forward anymore. We're just waiting for the next descent. If this story shook you.
So for you folks that sit there and comment on YouTube and say I don't do anything but repost other people's videos, why don't you do us all a favor? Log off and go find a site that's more conducive with your way of thinking. Again, 3 links will be attached. You look at them. You let me know what you think. You sure as hell know what I think. You also know why I think what I think, don't you?